All right. So, hey, Brendan, I'm glad to be here. And, I think at times like this, it's so critical for us to just, you know, be in communication together and talk through the current events that we're dealing with.
Hmm.
And it's amazing how when we just sit there and talk for a little while, all of a sudden we come up with solutions to, to challenges that we might be facing. So
For sure.
the first conversation we want to have, I wrote down was understanding the shift. Like, what really has shifted? So we've got concerns with coronavirus. We've got concerns with stock market. That's bleeding into the real estate industry. Can we work? Can we not work? Is the government going to shut us down, make us all go home? There's so many things right now today that are confusing. But I think we need to sometimes just take a pause, hit the pause button, and ask ourselves, what has really shifted? And what should we be focusing on? So if you don't mind, I'll throw it out there because
Yeah.
we did talk about it just briefly. I believe what has shifted instantly, as soon as all this started happening, what shifted was we shifted from certainty to uncertainty when it comes to economic and health concerns.
Hmm.
So I think what's really, because it's a little too early to say real estate market's gone down. We can't say the market's gone down. We say stock market's gone down. We can't say the real estate market's gone down. There hasn't been enough time.
Hmm.
But what has shifted is we've shifted from certainty to uncertainty. Any thoughts on that? Let's dive into that, and help our listeners and our agents understand this better.
Yeah, so I agree 100%. And I think there's a couple of things that make it a little bit more, and we can talk about this, make it a little bit more concerning, have a little bit more fear involved, is the speed at which it happened. So I think
Yeah.
there was probably, shift has been a topic of conversation for well over a year in the real estate market. And just depending on who you're listening to and depending on how well you are dialed into what's going on, it's been a conversation. That's not anything new. So if a shift has happened, then the concern is it happened overnight. It really did happen in the grand
Yes.
scheme of things. For as long as we've been talking about it, it feels like it's happened overnight.
Mm-hmm.
Also, the most concerning thing wasn't like, well, inventory's up a little bit, or boy, I'm seeing a little drag. I'm not seeing as many offers and stuff. It was in probably one of the most important things, which was in January, if you asked agents, how's 2020 looking? It's incredible. It's going to be another great year. We got great demand, interest rates are on the way down, all that stuff. We went from like the highest of highs to the lowest of lows in the shortest amount of time possible.
Mm-hmm.
Makes it feel really, really intense right now, I think is what's happening.
Yes. Yeah. And so, when we start and that's probably why we went from certainty to uncertainty so quick, right? Like there wasn't a lot to monitor in the last week that we could say, oh my gosh, the market's going down. We don't even know if the market's going down.
Right.
We know the stock market's gone down. We don't know anything about the real estate market yet. We have early indicators that it's probably going to move downward, but no one really knows because it's not factual. It's all speculative, but it is pretty much a fact that there's a lot of uncertainty. So, I want to share with agents, how do we bring certainty back into uncertain times? Because I really believe that's the key. The key with developing a real estate business, sustaining a good real estate business through turmoil, through times like this, is being that professional that can bring certainty back into the conversation. One thing that I just wrote down, I don't know, something you said kind of made me think about it, is I've been getting texts from people and says, hey, how do you handle this objection? And that objection might be, I don't want to show my home because I don't want strangers to come in. Like, I don't know if that's an objection. Yeah. So as a real estate professional, this is a very key tip right here. If you're actually hearing people's concerns as if they're really objections, and you as a real estate agent are trying to get crafty in how to handle that objection as if it's an objection, then you're going to come across salesy.
Mm-hmm.
What you've got to do is we've got to take our objection ears off and understand when people say things and you tend to feel like it's an objection, you need to immediately switch to, that's one of their concerns. So when you know that that's one of their concerns versus it's their objection, then you're going to respond differently. You're going to say, you know what? I've heard other people with that same concern. And even if if I was in your shoes, I might have that same concern if I'm in your shoes. One of the things that, that I can bring to the conversation is this. Then you go ahead and address the concern. But the key is bringing certainty back into the conversation is not believing that everything people say, not everybody's concerns or whatever those concerns are not necessarily objections. So stop talking to the consumer by, trying to handle every objection that they're giving, because they're not objecting. They're just scared.
Yeah, that's a great point, because I'll tell you, even, and this is why there's never been a more critical time to be plugged into these types of conversations, because 10 days ago, I got that same objection and a couple of others, and came up with, at the time, something that was very effective for that. But look at what's happened in 10 days in the country or in your individual market. So there's going to be conversations that over time, it was relevant then, and stuff changed quick. So
Yes.
you have to be cognizant of, where is the consumer now? Where can you best serve them? And what your question were, how do we deal with that uncertainty, or how do we get some of that back, is, I think when we had talked about this in the past, and we talked about a shift, the challenge we knew we were going to have is there's going to be stuff that's out of our control. That's always, you can be certain of the stuff that you do. So we've always made the connection. When the shift happens, when something changes out of your control, that creates uncertainty. Where do you go? Where do you gravitate? And you go to the things that you actually have control of. So, not to minimize this situation at all, but if you break it down to the absolute core, a shift's taken place. What's it mean? We're not sure yet. There's uncertainty. We knew that was probably likely at some point, so nothing's new there. And how do we get back to certainty? We go back to what we can control, because uncertainty lives where we don't have any control. So we got to go back to, what do we do, right?
Yeah, the activities, right? The activity. I'd say there's two things. One, I just wrote down. I think the obvious is the actions, the activities that we take on a daily basis. I think here's where a lot of agents need to also shift, what they need to change. But most leaderships, broker owners, managers, coaches don't really talk about this. We need to change our listening. See, when somebody says, oh no, I think I'm going to hold off, we go into sales mode.
Oh,
because we're hearing, oh, this is an objection. Whew, I'm skilled. I've got my objection handlers. Yeah. We listen to, oh, I can overcome that. Where we really need to just really be with them. Mm-hmm. Hey, I think I'm going to hold off. Then pause, then respond. Don't react. Mm-hmm. And if we will change that, you'll change your listening, and you'll understand that what's behind the consumer's concept, their conversation. What's behind that? Like, okay, I hear them. They're saying, I want to hold off. Well, so tell me a little bit more about that. Like, what are you thinking? How long? What are you concerned about? Like, peel the onion a little bit deeper, a few more layers deeper towards the core, so you can really address their concerns. Yeah. And so a shift in your listening, because that's going to determine whether you react or you respond, and a shift in your activities is going to be what determines the winner on the other side of this.
Yeah, that's a great point.